Great to be back. I'm looking forward to continue with our course, and we are continuing with quality management. Now, in this presentation, as a part of quality, I want to introduce a very important concept, which is the concept of total quality management, also called TQM. Now, when we look at TQM, or total quality management, we start, in fact, from a customer-focused approach. We do it for the customer, and we have to provide everything so that the customer will be happy. Now, when we look at the elements to do that, we have to look at employees. We have to empower our employees. The employees will be there to serve the customer, and they have to understand what has to be done. They have to have a customer-centric mindset. We also look at processes. Processes are very important because, like I mentioned already before, in operations management, we believe that a good process will, in fact, copy success. We can repeat success, and the selection of good processes and keeping those processes optimized will help us providing the good service for the customer. We work with integrated systems in order to avoid all kinds of problems. We want to see that we catch all the elements, so we have to integrate our different systems to serve the customer. We have to consider a strategic and systematic approach. It's a strategy. We have to put systems there to be able to serve the customer. We have to make decisions based on fact. It's not just we make a decision, but we have to know, why do we decide something? It's very important to understand why we make a decision, what are the facts, and based on those facts, we will make the necessary decisions. Communications is very important. We've already seen between the customer and the company, between the people, communications can be a very important factor when people would not be implementing the rules like we defined in the company. So it's very important to see that everybody is aware communication is of key importance when we are talking about quality. And of course, a very important element is what we call continuous improvement. So basically what we're going to see is that we find issues, we repeat the cycle, we will identify how we can improve it, and we keep on doing that. So every time we find ways to improve things, we will in fact do that automatically. Like I said, TQM is customer-centric. It is a continuous process. It doesn't stop, it goes on. We look at errors and we try to detect them, we reduce them, and basically we want to eliminate all those errors in the production area. We have a streamlined supply chain management. We have to follow that everything is working, that the supply chain is working properly. And what we get is that TQM will lead to an improvement of the customer satisfaction. And like we started at the beginning of the cycle, it is very important to be sure that all the employees are included in training and that the management supports all the efforts that we are making. Now, when we look at the 7 concepts for an effective TQM program, we can say that we have to look at a continuous improvement. We look at Six Sigma implementation to improve quality. We will talk about Six Sigma later on in a different chapter, but basically we already mentioned Six Sigma before, but Six Sigma is a very important element in the area of quality. We also look at employee empowerment and a team approach to everything. We look at competitive benchmarking. We want to see what our competition is doing. Just-in-time management is very important. We also consider Taguchi concepts and quality at the source. Taguchi concepts relate to the cost of quality. We want to identify when we are not producing, when we are moving away from the goal value, how many losses we are really making. Then we have the people have to know the 7 tools, the TQM tools. We will look at that later in some definition of those tools and the application. And of course, what is very important is that we have very good supplier relationships. Our suppliers work with us, they work for us, they provide us good materials, and without those good materials, without that good relationship, it's very difficult to guarantee TQM. Let's have a look at the TQM approach itself. We see, first of all, we want to find out what the customer wants. It's very important. It's not necessarily what we want. We have to look at or listen to the voice of the customer, and we have to see what is in fact important for the customer. We have to design to meet or exceed the needs. When we design it, we want to see that the needs of the customer are covered, and if we can get something extra, why not? But it's very important to understand the extra, it's very good, but does it bring us an advantage? We have to see how far the needs are in fact exceeding. We have to get processes that include fail-safe systems. It means that the process will be stopped when something is wrong. It can be automatically done so that we know that something is wrong and that we don't continue to produce items that are basically unusable, that have to be repaired or that have to be scrapped. We also have to keep track of the results. We want to have statistics, and we want to implement the same principles throughout the entire supply chain. It should be a total concept. Everybody, everywhere should be looking at total quality management. We also look at the involvement of all the personnel. We have to have the support of lower, medium, and top management. Without that support, it is not possible to implement and to maintain a total quality management system in our companies. Now, when we look at total quality, we can also compare it with the traditional approach. And let's have a look at this table when we look at all the different aspects, when we look at the traditional approach and when we look at the TQM approach. The overall aspect in a traditional approach is that we want to maximize the return on investment. Also, the bonuses of people depend on the ROI. So basically, we want to get those bonuses. We want to get the high ROI, but in TQM, we try to meet or exceed the customer expectations. So you see the ROI is an internal approach, while in TQM, we look at an external approach towards the customer. Typically, in the traditional approach, the objectives were set in a traditional way, while in TQM, we look at a balance between long and short term. Management in a traditional organization is not always open, inconsistent, they do their own thing, they don't care about the rest. But in TQM, the management is open and promotes, in fact, employee involvement. The role of the manager in a traditional approach is more like ordering and pushing through decisions, while in a TQM environment, it's about coaching and building trust and listening to the people to get a better cooperation with everything. When the people are open, they will come to you, they bring suggestions, they want to improve. When you just order, they don't care. You take the responsibility, it's not my problem. The customer in the traditional approach was not really the highest priority, not always very clear what the position of the customer was. We have a good product, we make the good product, you just have to buy it. Remember, some of you may remember or may have heard about the way IBM was dealing with the computers. They just told their customers, now you can buy a computer. We cannot imagine that today anymore. Quality, well, it was this or nothing. So basically the people accepted it. Now in TQM, Total Quality Management, everything is customer centric. We do it for the customer. Now in the traditional environment, problems is about putting blames and punishing people for things that they do wrong. In total quality management, problems are based by the system. We have to find something about the system. If people can make an error, it means that the system allows the people to make an error, and we have to avoid that. Problem solving, traditionally an individual approach, while in TQM we have a systematic approach. There are tools that will help us. Also, improvements in a traditional approach are erratic, while in a TQM they are organized and continuous. Suppliers in a traditional approach, we try to put them in to compete. We get the best price. When they don't comply, we kick them out. We take another one. There are enough customers. While in TQM, the value of the supplier is important. The supplier will bring products to us that will help us to be better, that will help us to produce better services and products. They're partners in our success. In a traditional approach, the jobs are typically narrow and specialized, focused on the individual, while in total quality management environments, we have a broad job description. It's based on team efforts. And the focus, finally, the last element I wanted to consider, I wanted to compare. In a traditional approach, the focus is project-oriented or product-oriented. And in fact, in the TQM, it's process-oriented. The process is the basis of everything. Basically, this table gives us a very nice overview what the differences between the different systems are, and you can use it as a guidance to see what is happening in your organization, what are the elements that comply with TQM, what are the elements that don't comply, and you can try to find out how to improve the system starting from this analysis. Now, it's always nice to say we're going to do TQM, but there are some obstacles. There are things that people don't want to change. Now, let's have a look at what obstacles you typically can encounter when you want to implement total quality management. The first obstacle is basically that there is no clear definition of what quality is within your organization. There is no strategic plan or planning for change. It's not foreseen, then you have problems to implement TQM. When there is a missing or non-existing customer focus approach, the customer, they buy, we don't care. We also have elements that make it difficult to implement TQM is related to communications between departments. When there are bad communications, it's very difficult to share all that information to make everybody aware of the TQM approach. Also, employee empowerment is not an element that, let's say, it's an element that will be an obstacle because the employees have no empowerment. In TQM, it's important that they have empowerment. Typically, in some organizations, people look at a quick fix approach to quality, and it's not systemic. So they don't look at the system, how to improve it. They just do quick fixes, and that's it. Some companies still focus on short-term financial results. They typically focus on cost and not advantages. They typically want to reduce the costs, but they don't see the amounts of money then throwing away just by looking at the final element, reducing the costs. Let's say, they don't look at the advantages of the quality approach. There are also elements like internal politics. When the people are having internal politics, everybody wants to have their position. These are elements which are very difficult to basically organize, or that these are elements that are in fact blocking you from a TQM implementation. Motivation of managers and employees, a very important factor. If it's missing, again, a parameter that will not help you. Also very important is that people don't want to take time to devote to quality. They don't want to look into the quality. They only want to work. I've seen that in many cases. I was in some projects and I was preparing things. I was looking at some way to do it in a different way. So basically, during a certain time, I was not working. I was not doing things. I was not producing anything at that moment. And people were commenting because they wanted to work, they wanted to do things. But the moment that after my study, after my testing, my system was working well, it was so many times faster than doing the work like the other people did. There is a very nice example in the movie The Imitation Game. You know, the imitation game, which is about cracking the Enigma code with Alan Turing and his colleagues. They are working by hand, trying to decipher those thousands of messages. And Turing was sitting at his desk, just working on a machine that might work or not. At that time, it was really very stressful. He wanted to do it. People didn't believe it. But finally, when the system worked, the investment was paid back very quickly. But it took a certain time. And that's the worst thing. If an organization doesn't believe in it, they just work, work, work. I had a colleague providing me work. She had to redo it 3 times. And I told her, because she was working so fast, and I told her to work slower. And she said, yeah, but then it will take the double of the time. I say, well, it's still a factor less than when you have to do it and redo it like 3 times. But the people, in some cases, they don't think like that. And worse, some managers do not want them to think like that. They want to keep the people basically, sorry for the word stupid, but basically they're just proving that they are stupid. When we look at leadership, also very important. When we don't have good leadership, it's impossible to implement new things. The leadership really should be focusing on total quality management. There are also some critics or criticism related to TQM. Sometimes people just blindly advocate only TQM, while there are other more important issues. There may be some issues with the competitors, there may be some product designs to deal with competition. And when you just focus on TQM, TQM is not producing anything. So first you have to see that you have a basis to make your company profitable, and then you can work with quality. Now, the TQM the programs can become a goal on itself, and they forget everything about company strategy. It's only quality, quality, quality. Again, that's something that should be avoided. Quality-related decisions may sometimes cost more than the advantages that they bring. And in that case, we have to be careful that it may weaken the organization. I saw a very nice example about quality in a movie on Netflix about the world of tanks. And one of the things they were looking at was the T-34 tank, which was a very important tank that was used by the Soviet army during the Second World War. And basically, the people were making the tank so strong that it was using so much time to produce. And basically, a tank would be, after a few days or even faster, be destroyed in the battles. So basically what they did, they were reducing the quality, the elements of that tank in order to have more tanks available and have the items available when the people needed it. The same with some airplane engines or some decisions to be made related to certain instruments. When we make them too good, it doesn't help us. We put too much money on the quality part, and basically we don't have anything available to work with at that time. So we have to find a way. It's not quality in the absolute sense, but we have to see that quality serves the total result, the total strategy. Now, when we look at TQM efforts that have not been evaluated and planned properly, these will lead to changes and confusion. When you don't plan it, when you don't take the time to plan everything, you may end up with more problems than what you signed up for. Now, the TQM typically looks at a continuous improvement, and in some cases, we may forget the fact that we are looking at the trees and not at the forest, that we may be overlooking that a continuous improvement is not a good solution. And we may be focused so much on the trees, on the total quality management, that we forget to oversee that we need a dramatic change. So basically, this could also destroy the effect of total quality management. And finally, there are also quality efforts that are not tied to results. That's also important that we identify those and that we avoid those. So this was an overview of total quality management, a very important element in quality management of companies today. Quality is very important, total quality is very important, but like you've seen, we've seen what the different elements are, but we also looked at some obstacles and some criticism we can have when we're talking about total quality management. If we use total quality management properly, TQM will be a very powerful tool to compete against our competitors. If we don't use it properly, it will be just another failure within the company, and it will do more harm than good. So that was this video. We're at the end of this video. Let's meet again in the next video. Thank you and bye-bye.